Started here. Just check. Yeah. So can you hear me right now? Thumbs up if you can hear me. Great. So all you need today is a chair. We're going to do marching exercises. Some exercises today, if you have a resistance band, we're going to pull them out. That will be a little bit later on today. So chair, resistance band, and then just marching type warm up, just like the happy hearts. Sweet. So we're going to get started just with a marching pattern. So seeing if you can just go into a march to start. So welcome to Fitness with Familiar Faces, brought to you by the Vancouver Parks Board. If you haven't seen a ParkU Plus form, it's sent out in the email. It's best to do these exercises with socks and shoes so that there's no tripping hazards. But I just woke up, so we're just gonna get started with it. So we're gonna start off with posture first. So marching just to get you going, but arms are gonna come to the side into a palm up and a palm down. That's good for stretching front shoulder chest. If people who are seated a lot in the day, whether that's office work or driving, then they will have tighter front shoulder chest muscles. So we're going to do a few exercises just to help with neutral posture first. And it's 3 sets, 20 seconds each exercise, and we get a break every 2 sets. So the next one we're going to go into is putting one foot out in front, seeing if you can push and pull, moving that ankle forward and back. So especially for people that have more knee pain, discomfort in the hip, knee, or ankle, we start with this exercise. So you want to have your foot planted in front of you, pushing as your knee goes forward. It actually starts from the ankle joint. And that's an ankle stretch. Can be useful before walking, before gardening. And then you switch sides. It's the other foot. Other foot goes planted, pushing back and forth. For balance, your back leg wide will give you more balance. Your back leg narrow will make it harder to balance. Anytime you challenge your balance, that helps to strengthen muscles of the hip. So that's our second exercise, that ankle stretch. Yeah. And then the next one we go into is to help with stiffness in the low back, to help with shoulder checking. So you're going to see if you can keep your feet separate, hands come to the middle, stomach muscle pulled in, and you're going to twist towards one side, rotating and coming back, rotating and coming back. So whichever leg is in front of you, that's the side you're going to rotate to. You'll feel that stretch in the mid to low back. If stomach muscles are pulled in, you'll feel tightness in the ribs. But that's good for shoulder checking, good for stiffness in the low back, and it trains your ab muscles. Then you switch sides. Other foot goes in front, hands come to the middle, stomach muscle pulled in, and then you rotate or turn to one side. Standing twist. So it is important to keep moving throughout these days. Some people have a routine where they go cycling for 30 minutes, an hour. Some people have a walking routine. Some people find it hard to do exercise during this time. Even if you can do 5 minutes of stretching or moving, it does accumulate over time, and it can help give you breaks, especially if you're still working these days. Going back into your marching pattern. The marching is just to get the heart rate up a little bit. It could also be done by walking back and forth, but we repeat these exercises, going into your palm up and palm down. If you have any difficulty with reaching your arm behind the back, then this would be a good level for you, level 1. Otherwise, you try level 2, where elbows are bent and you rotate going back and forth. That's level 2. You'll feel more of like a pinch at the top of the shoulder, but you should still feel a tightening in the back or upper back muscles. and a stretch in your front shoulder chest. That's level 2. You could stick with option 1, which is your palm up and palm down. Yeah. That's called rotation of the shoulder. You bring those arms down and you try your second exercise. That 1 foot in front, pushing and pulling, moving that ankle forward and back. Ankle stretches can help when people have pains or discomfort at the bottom of the foot. Can help if there is soreness in the knee. Sometimes if people do the same type of exercise for a period of time, for example, going on walks, people that walk on hills may have more discomfort in the knee or the foot. So you just want to change to hills, flat ground. Yeah, and then you switch sides. Other foot, same thing, going into your pushing and your pulling, back and forth. Yeah, so going into that position there, and then from there you stay with that foot in front of you, you plant the feet, those hands come to the middle, stomach muscles pulled in, and you're adding that twist or that turn one way into the middle. Sometimes when people twist in this position, it can cause some soreness in the knee. You only want to twist to where you feel a stretch in the mid to low back. If you twist too far and you feel discomfort in the knee, in the shoulder blade, then you don't want to twist as far. Yeah, then you switch sides. Other foot goes out in front. Those stomach muscles pulled in, hands come to the middle, and then you rotate or come back into the middle. Standing twist. If you play any type of racket sports or are going to do a little bit of resistance band work today, level 2 would be to do it with an arm straight. Works more front shoulder muscles, stretches out your upper back a little bit more. But again, if there's any neck soreness, shoulder soreness, you stick with those hands in the middle. And all of these exercises can be done standing or seated. It's just up to you which one you try. Perfect. So that's your first 2 sets. We're going to take 30, 40 seconds break here. If you need to grab some water, grab some water. And I'll open up the floor if there's any questions. Seconds. We're going to repeat these 3, and then we'll throw in another 3 exercises in there too. So we repeat that sequence. So seeing if you can go back into that marching pattern to help with more tall or neutral posture. Arms are to the side into your palm up, palm down. Level 1. Level 2, that rotation, going back and forth. And again, for your marching, you can march, feet stay close to the ground. You can add a high march, which is more for balance. Or some people prefer going into a step forward, a step back. That's also another option for these type of marching exercises. From there, you see if you can place 1 foot in front of you. Hands come into the middle, pushing and pulling, moving that ankle forward and back. That front foot stays planted. And the movement starts from the ankle. The knee just comes along for the ride. Yeah. And then you switch sides. So the other foot will go in front. Same, that pushing and pulling motion, moving the ankle forward and back. So these exercises can work as a warm-up for you if you're going to go do some activity outside or in the house. These exercises, depending on how intense your exercises are, can be used as a cool down as well, or it can be used as your exercise for the day if you find it hard to stick to a routine. We're here for you every Monday and Fridays, and we do take any comments, questions, or if you want to see something else in the class, you let us know. From there, you stay that foot in front, hands come to the middle, stomach muscle pulled in, rotating and coming back, level 1. Level 2, that arm, especially if you play any type of racket sports. And level 3 is opening up wide, where you open and open across the body. Twist and opening. That's a shoulder or chest stretch. Just like palm up, palm down for a neutral posture. Then you switch sides. Other foot goes in front, hands to the middle, stomach muscles pulled in, rotating. Option 1, option 2, and the hardest variation, opening up wide. Feeling that tightness in the upper back, stretching front shoulder chest, stretching low back and tightening ribs or stomach muscles. And then last one. Perfect. From there, you're going to plant those feet. Hands come to the middle, seeing if you can just go into some hip circles. So for the next 3 exercises, I'm going to give the option to do it with the band or with no band, switching sides. So if you do have resistance bands or TheraBands, it's a good time to grab them, but we'll give you different options for them. So today's focus is more for the hips, especially if there's stiffness in the low back. So we're going to see if we can get you going into just a side to side. So seeing if you can just go into a side to side motion with the hips. Once you have that pattern, you want to open and close those shoulders. That's level 1. If you have a band, then level 2 is to do a T-row. For example, you have a band, you would grab the handles and the band together, and you would tear the band apart and close. That's a T-row. If you want to strengthen the upper back a little bit more, then you would use the band. If the focus is more to stretch front shoulder chest, or just keep things comfortable for the low back, then option 1 with no band works just fine. Yeah. From there, we go into the second exercise. Feet go hip width apart, hands come on the hips, and you see if you can add a bend. Moving those hips behind you, feeling the stretch in the back of the thighs. Option 1, legs straight. Option 2 is to get more in a knee bend position. And finally, option 3 is adding that pull and coming up, pulling and coming up. And the second round, we're going to add some bands for this one. And that's good for hip strength, balance. And when people have stiffness in the low back, it's good to move those hip muscles around. Yeah. Perfect. From there, you return. And you see if you can go into your wide stance, a wider stance, hands come to the middle, and you're going to see if you can add a bit of a squat, sitting down and coming up tall again. So different angles of this one, sitting, option 1, option 2 to go a little bit lower, or for balance, if you need to have a chair there, feel free. But a wide stance today, because it stretches out your inner thighs a little bit more. It can be easier to squat with a wide stance. So it might be more useful for people with lower back stiffness to squat in this position. And then you got one more here. Perfect. So we're on the second break now. So if you need to grab water, grab it. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll unmute everyone here. Repeat that sequence. So we're going back into that side to side, opening and closing, front shoulder chest stretch, level 1, or you can use your band, where you grab the handle and the band together, arms go out in front, and you tear the band apart as you step. If it's just for posture or to get you moving, no band necessary, level 1. If it's more for strengthening muscles, maybe that don't get used as much in your day, then a band is a great option, a T-row. Yeah. Perfect. The next exercise you go into is seeing if your feet can go hip width apart, hands at the hips, and adding your bend. Level 1. Or if you want to start using the band, what you do is you'll step on it, you grab the handle and the band together, and you bend, pull, and come up. Bending, pulling, and coming up. So this one you should feel more in your hip muscles as you bend, and your upper back or shoulders as you pull. If you're getting discomfort in the low back with this one, you don't have to go into this bend position. You can also just go legs straight, and you see how that feels. Otherwise, pulling, coming up, pulling, and coming up. And then last one there. Great. For the next one, we went into our squat position. So now you're going to put the band right underneath the armpit, grabbing band and handle together. Your feet go wide for a stretch in your inner thighs. And option 1, sitting down and coming up. Option 2, if you have the bands, is adding that push and coming back up again. Pushing is for front shoulder chest, a little bit of those arm muscles. And again, if anything doesn't feel right, you can always go back to the marching. Or for the squat, it doesn't matter how low you go, just into that squatted position is fine. Or if you want more of a challenge, going a little bit lower. And then last one. So we repeat that sequence for a third and final set, going back into your marching position. Side to side is good for changing direction, good for your hip or glute muscles. That's level 1, opening and closing. Or you can use the band, grabbing the handle and the band together, tearing that band apart. Yeah, just 15, 20 seconds each side. Then we went into our bending exercise, where you step on the band. Option 1, keeping your legs straight and bending. You don't go as far. Option 2 is going into your deadlift, where your knees do bend. And option 3 is once you are in that deadlifted position, adding that pull and coming up. So always breathing in and out throughout the exercises. If there's any shortness of breath, sharp pains, then you want to stick with your marching or wait until we add some chair stretches in a couple of exercises here. And then last one. Going into the last one of the marching and band exercises, putting that band underneath those armpits. Feet will go wide, so a wider stance. And level 1 is into that mini squat, pressing and coming back if you do have a band. Or you can try to sit down a little bit lower. As long as you feel that at the outside of the hips, glute muscles, in front of the thighs, your quad muscles, then we're good. If there's any discomfort in the neck, low back, or knee, don't worry about the band. See what amount of movement works for you. Good. So from there, grab some water if you need to. We're going to go doing some stretches now with the chair. So stretches for the low back, stretches for the hips. All right. So stretches for the lower back, different options, standing and seated. So if we're in a standing position, you're going to use the chair. You're going to take 1 or 2 steps away. Those arms go in front, and you try moving your hips behind you. Breathing in and breathing out. Feeling the stretch in the shoulders, the low back, and the back of your legs, your hamstrings. And we used the back muscles for the pulling exercises today, while we use the thighs for the bending and squatting. Some people like going back and forth. Some people like holding it. Whichever one feels better for you. And if you are in the seated position, it would just be where you reach as far as you can in front of you. Feeling the stretch around the lats and a little bit in the lower back. So standing or seated for different options. You release. The next one you try is your runner stretch. Front leg bent, back leg straight. So you will see that my back foot stays planted. Once you have this position, feeling the stretch at the top of the hip, you can add a low back stretch. So option 1 is reaching down, feeling the stretch in the lower back on that same side you're stretching of the hip. So if your right leg is behind you, you're stretching the low back on that side. If there's any shoulder injuries, this is the option. Otherwise, it's a teapot stretch. If there's no shoulder injuries, it feels okay to get into this position. This is a stretch for the lower back and your hip flexors or front of the hip, front of the thigh. Breathing in and breathing out. And then you switch sides. Other foot goes in front. Front leg bent, back leg straight. Option 1, if there's any shoulder injuries. Option 2 is your teapot stretch. And these can be done in the seated position as well, where it's reaching down for the stretch in the low back or reaching across. So it can be done standing or can be done seated. And then from there, you release. The next one we do can be done standing or seated. I'm going to show it seated first. That's our hip or glute stretch, where you cross a leg. Some people like doing this one seated, feeling this on the side of the hip, but standing can also be done too. And in that version, it would be where you cross a leg and you have a seat. You have the chair there for support. That would be option 2. If you want to do it standing, go for it. But most people find it more relaxing in a seated position. Breathing in, breathing out as you normally do. And then you're going to switch sides. So whether you're on the chair seated or standing, you would cross that leg. The more you tilt forward at the hips, the more intense that stretch at the glute or outside of your hips. And we use these muscles the most with the side to side movement, with the bending, and with the squatting. That's when we would have used our glute muscles the most. So just stretching muscles that you've used during your exercise session, whatever it is you did for exercise that day. And then from there, you release. So we repeat these exercises for a second set, going back into that lower back stretch with the chair in the standing position, 1 or 2 feet away, and moving those hips behind you, breathing in and breathing out. Or some people like going back and forth. Feeling that stretch in the back of the shoulders, the lats, the low back, and the hamstrings. And if you are in the seated position, you would have a seat and you would reach forward as much as you can. But that's the first one, so you relax from that side. So you're good with that low back stretch. The next one we go into is into your runner stretch, front leg bent, back leg straight. And then adding whichever side that leg is behind, that's the side you want to add that stretch. So for here, it would be in this position. Or teapot. So the same side you're stretching for hip and lower back. If you are on the chair, then that is the same hip flexor stretch. Either up or across. Chair or standing version, whichever one feels better for you. Good. From there, you switch sides. So if you're on the chair, you look the other way, opening up, or in your standing position. And we hold that stretch for another 20 seconds. Yeah, from there, those arms come down, and we go into the last exercise today is your glute or hip stretch. Can be done standing where you cross a leg and you have a seat, or can be done on the chair. If you are using the chair, sitting on the edge of the chair in a tall position, feeling your stretch along the outside of the hip. Seated glute stretch. So with these classes, we mostly do 9 exercises. We do 3 sets, 9 exercises. To have an exercise routine, just being able to do it consistently works, switching sides, but you don't have to do 9 exercises for your own routine. Generally, an exercise routine of 3 to 9 exercises on most days can help with stiffness, can help with getting you move a little bit more, and can also help you with getting on track with food, diet, or even drinking water. People generally drink more water in the day if they have done some sort of exercise, if that's one of the goals. Yeah. And then from there, you release. Perfect. So that's the class for today. Thank you all for coming. I'm just going to unmute everyone here. But if you have any questions, any comments, I'm here. I'm still here. I'm just going to unmute everyone.